Welcome, my friend, to the Be the Frequency podcast, where we talk all things business, healing, manifestation, and following your dharma or your soul's purpose. My name is Shalane Carter, and I'm the entrepreneur's healer. I'm here blending spirituality and success because you can have both. I help women all over the world heal their subconscious beliefs that are keeping them from making these big moves in their life that lead to more impact and income. If you're looking for a place where you can be inspired and laugh, feel seen and heard, and where you'll discover more about yourself and how to be the best version of you while making money at doing what you love, then this is the podcast for you. Are you ready? Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Be the Frequency podcast. I am really excited to kind of share this particular story as I just launched. It's called Master Manifester. I've kind of alluded to it in some of the other podcast episodes. Master Manifester is this program that really blends and is this marriage of science and spirituality and like really understanding what's actually happening behind the scenes when you're trying to manifest something instead of just doing craft nights and making a vision board that just sits there and gets dusty, or using affirmations that don't actually work. So it's not that affirmations aren't great. It's that their purpose is a tool. It's more like support. So we kind of go over this really great like masterclass talking about the 3 things that I see as a healer that most people encounter when they're struggling with manifestation, and which kind of segued was like this little tiny sliver, this little tiny portion, but it was such a good masterclass. Really, this particular time in my life, I am reflecting a lot on where I have been, because right now I'm building my 3rd business to 6 figures. And I know how to do it. I've done this several times before. And every business is going to be a little bit different. Everyone's going to have nuances. You're going to have things that work at that time in your life and things that don't, or things that are more of a priority. Certain times in your life require certain things from you. Then, another time in your life, you're like, oh, that's really not that important. But I think when I'm reflecting back at this time in my life, I wanted to share this episode with you, is that in order to make some type of leap, in order to transition in timelines, there needs to be a couple of things that happen. And I think it's not really what you expect. So I wanted to do a whole episode on how I went and kind of quantum leap from, I am not kidding you, like single mom, 2 kids, no job, living with my mom, to making 6 figures, moving out on my own, having employees, and kind of doing these things, because it really happened in a pretty short amount of time. And that kind of experience, once I kind of figured that out, I've been able to replicate it in several other faculties of my life, including finding my husband, including, finding the house that we're in now, this beautiful home that, truly, like, I should maybe I'll tell you the story if it kind of goes there on how we ended up with this house, because it is wild. And I think show you too that this is possible for you, that when you're wanting something and you're wanting your life to change, it can't just be about the wanting, and it can't just be a vision board and like praying and hoping, and those things are helpful, but there's a whole process that goes into it. And I break down everything in Master Manifester. It's 4 weeks. We start on April 1st. So if you're interested in the show notes, you can kind of go check it out. There's a ton of information, over 40 lessons that are actually pre-recorded, so you can kind of watch them at your leisure. There's 10 activations. They're different than meditations. There are a certain time, there's a certain cadence to them. There is a specific words used, because these particular things have been shown to change the brainwave frequencies and kind of entrain the brain differently, as well as activate and really get to your genes and how your genes express. And this is really important. If you want to change what you're experiencing, you have to change what you're experiencing. And I know that sounds really like lofty, but let's dive into this particular episode. But before we get started, I want to ask you, if you listen to Be the Frequency, if you love specific episodes, if you're like, oh, I got a text message the other day and it was like, thank you for doing an episode on that. That was exactly what I needed to hear, and like totally changed my perspective and made me feel so like heard. I can't remember the exact words, but it was something to that effect, or like, so seen. And if any episode feels like that for you, please, 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 this is how I help more people is share that episode, share it to your stories, share that you were listening, share it to your stories and tag me so I know that you're listening. I can reshare things like that. The more that we share information about how we're changing our lives and mirror to people that it's possible, the more people change their lives. So you're also doing others a favor by sharing information that has helped you with them. No secrets here. We don't gatekeep, okay? We're letting it all out on the table. So if you love this episode, or if there's another episode that you think a friend would really love, be a good friend, share it with them, write a review. And I'm just going to kind of drop this right here. There's something coming for you in April for those of you who are listeners. Where was I when I started to make this transition? When I was like, hey, things need to change in my life, and why this usually happens. So this happened for myself. This is really, really common. I see it in clients all the time, is you kind of have to hit this rock bottom, or this, I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would be experiencing this, in order to change. Why is that? People are like, why don't I change when it's just like, it's not going quite so great, but maybe it could be a little bit better. We have to get to the point where we are so uncomfortable that it's either we stay, our only option is to stay in this amount of discomfort or change. And because we'll tolerate the devil we know over the devil we don't any day of the week. We love comfortability. I'm not saying that of like there's anything bad. That's our biology. That is our biology, is to make things as systematic as possible and as easy as possible. When we do that, though, we then push away things that would require effort for us to learn and to change. And so when you do that, it means that it's totally normal, but you're brushing up against something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And you're like, okay, if this makes me feel uncomfortable, I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to feel pain. Our natural tendency is to shy away from pain and to lean a little bit more into pleasure. But we even realize that pleasure is temporary. The funny thing is, though, we are more concerned about avoiding pain than we are staying in pleasure. It's like we're okay with pleasure, like coming and going, savoring that experience and really like relishing in it, knowing that this isn't going to be forever. And it's like when something's so good, sometimes we have a tendency to sit in that sense of gratitude with an awareness already that it's leaving us. But we don't seem to have that same tolerance for pain, which I find really fascinating. I haven't found any studies or anything like that, particularly on that specific of like why it is that we can't wrap our minds around that pain is temporary. But initially, when we feel any type of uncomfortability, any type of pain, whether it be emotional or physical, we want to move away from it. That has kept us alive. Yay for us. You're still here. You're still kicking. I was at this point in my life, and this is why people often have to hit those points, that fork in the road. I had a client yesterday that I was kind of describing it to her, what I was experiencing, what was coming through my like intuition, through my like, I always call them like my spidey senses, but my like spirit guides. And when I was feeling her energy, I was like, it's like when you are trying to travel down a road and you get to a fork in the road and you're like, okay, I'm going to kind of try and do both. I'm going to try and keep one foot on one road because I want both things, right? I want the comfort of what I already know, but I also want this road that, at the time I was like, I want a job that I can be with my babies. I want a job that's flexible. I want a job where I don't have to live with my mom, where I'm financially independent. Like I want all of these things, but I also want the comfortability of what I already know. And so when you're doing that and you're trying to keep one foot on each of these paths, right? As the fork starts to spread, you're only going to go so far because your legs are only so long. Like you could be a master at splits, but still like from point to point, you can only have a toe in both worlds at the same time. And maybe when you're in the splits, that's when you're really uncomfortable. Maybe that's why the splits are uncomfortable, you guys. Maybe that's it. When you are at that space of uncomfortability, here's kind of what's happening. Your nervous system is saying we either like, what is that? Like evolve or die. That's pretty much what is happening. You need to evolve or you are going to become complacent. And honestly, that feels, for most people, they'll tell you, it feels like it erodes at your soul. They are so unhappy. They're usually so, unsure of themselves. Everything's always terrible, things like that. Usually there's like a negative Nelly aspect to it. We have to evolve or die. And so what happens when we're like wanting to like quantum leap, when we're wanting to make that shift? I was at this place where I had my daughter, I was pregnant with my son, and my partner had just passed. I was living with my mom. I had no job. I had no job. I was nannying a bit for my cousins, and that was good, but I was like, I like this is not what I saw for my life ever. I never like I moved out as soon as I could move out to like get my own apartment, and I was making really good money at the time, especially for my age and like all of these things. And I was like, my life turned real quick. How do I turn this around? And I was like, okay, then this is kind of what I teach in the Master Manifestor. I was like, I can only control so much. I can only control so much. I can control what's in my immediate world. I can either be sad, angry at the world, I can feel hurt, I can be upset with my partner passing away and blame and do all these things, or I can take responsibility for what I can. I was like, okay, cool. I can do that. I was like, well, first things first. When we moved up, it was kind of the agreement that I would nanny for my cousins. I was like, okay, great. That gave me something. Again, I was 21, 22, somewhere in there. And I had my daughter, and I was like, that would allow me to stay home with her, still make some money while I kind of made friends. I was like, okay, I'll do hair up here, but I didn't have my license long enough in Nevada, which is where I'm from, in order for the license to transfer. So I would have to go back to school. So I was like, I can do that while I go back to school. Okay, I know that I'm meant for more. I think when you know it in your bones, when it is like written on your soul. I don't think I could have denied those things if I if I wanted to. I think eventually it would have found me, which is a whole other episode about like karma and things like that. But you know when it's meant for you. You know, people that start businesses, they're like, I don't know, like you have to be so invested in this version of you, that this version of you that you don't recognize. It's like a hat I'm wearing. And eventually I'm going to take the hat off and I'm going to look different. You know, it's like the guy who always wears a baseball cap and you don't know what he looks like underneath. Here's what I can do. So I went back to school. I kind of, at that time, I did what I was in my control. And I was like, you know what? All of my connections are in Las Vegas, which is where I was born and raised. You know, what feels comfortable for me. I could go back to, I was working for MAC Cosmetics. I could go back to those things. I had no friends really. I had no job. Any job would take me away from my daughter, and I couldn't afford to pay for daycare and a house. I need to go back to something where I feel a little bit more grounded, which was a really good like instinctual move. Ended up moving back, got a job at working for Mac again, just kind of like freelancing. And one of my girlfriends that I used to work with was like, hey, I've started at this lash place. I think you'd be great. They're looking for people. I was like, well, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? I had tried a few other things to kind of make it work. And there was something within me. It felt very much like this is for me. And I look back now, and it was very much like my intuition and my spirit guides like pushing me and guiding me. Because there were things that I felt that were so clear, they didn't feel like mine. I didn't have doubt, which normally when you're kind of unsure of things, there's doubt. And I was like, nope, this is it. My books filled very quickly. I got an opportunity to move to be an entrepreneur and start my own business doing lashes. Did that within 6 months, was already hiring employees and moved very quickly. Literally from that moment to 6 months, I was already booked out 40 hours a week and was hiring employees. When that space of time, I was like, okay, what can I control? Some of what you're controlling is not just your external environment. Some of what you're controlling, you actually need to manage is your internal environment. I can be optimistic. I can look for the lessons in things. I can look for, moments where I feel inspired. I can enjoy this time with my daughter and then my son, like be really grateful that although my life isn't where I want it to be, it's in a place where I can spend a lot of time with them. When they were very little, I was able to, stay home with them. I worked, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, but I didn't go back to a 40-hour work week. This really beautiful time of when they were like baby. I really got to spend quite a bit of time with them. I can do what I need to do to make money, to provide for my family, and take those actions, and those are important. Ultimately, what I have the most amount of control over is how I feel about myself, how I interact with my opportunities, and how I view the world. That changes everything. What I would call now managing my energy and watching my thoughts. Of course, there are moments where you're like, what am I doing? That first job that I got doing lashes before I moved out on my own, when I left, I could not contact anyone. I could not take any of my clients. I couldn't tell them I was leaving. We didn't have access to the computer, like the booking system, nothing like that. And I was like, okay, so I literally left a job that felt very secure to start my own business with one client, and a unwavering faith that it would work. And what I realized the other day is that I am somebody, I didn't realize how this was really something that I've really developed and was so unique to me. If I say I'm going to do something, I fucking do it. I kind of even joke with my friends sometimes, like they're like, you're my person where I'm like, hey, let's do a 24-hour trip to the beach. If you say yes, like I know we're going. If you say yes, what day, and put it in your calendar, like we're going. If it's not in my calendar, I don't remember speaking about it. If this is what I'm going to do, and I realized I wasn't like that when I was younger. It was this moment where there was no plan B. There was no other timeline that I would ever choose but to be employed for myself at that moment. I wouldn't ever choose another timeline. And when you are that clear, and it kind of has to be like that, it has to be like, if I don't do this and literally jump in both feet, I will stay in my comfort zone. My biology wants me to be comfortable. My growth and this other timeline that I'm wanting, these other things that I'm trying to manifest, those require me to be so fucking committed that there's not a doubt in my mind that it's mine. It's just a matter of time. And that's pretty much how I felt. I was like, it's a matter of time. I rented space in this salon. I ran some specials. I made sure to like really network. This is kind of when I started using social media for stuff. And there has to be no other option. Because here's what happens. You brush up against this uncomfortability, and that's usually a very good sign. If you're running into self-sabotage where you're like, oh, like I never stick with my plan. I'm not saying you need to go out and pay thousands of dollars for a mentor, but I'm saying you need to get some fucking skin in the game. If you want to change your life, if you want to, when you brush up against that uncomfortability, and you're going to want to say, let's stay comfortable. When you have some type of skin in the game, that makes it very hard for you to be in your comfortable state. You almost have to be uncomfortable. It forces or it encourages the evolve part. It forces that you're going to choose the higher timeline that you're wanting. You're going to choose the thing that you're manifesting over your comfortability, because when you do that, you're saying, hey, all of these things that I've learned before, that I've been conditioned to be the normal, to be the thing, that's who I am. I'm saying I'm choosing something different. And when that starts to happen, not only do energetically things start to change, also your brain starts to change. Your brain starts to make different connections. The synapses that are like firing and wiring together in the brain start to change. And when you do that over and over and over and over again, you actually change the shape and change the connection within the brain. So the pathway that it travels down is not your old comfortable route, but now what's comfortable is this new timeline. So anytime you brush up against self-sabotaging behaviors, kind of at the rock bottom situation, or you're feeling even like small things like imposter syndrome, like you think the market is saturated and all that other bullshit, because that's not true. I'm going to tell you right now, it's never really saturated. Okay. It's never really saturated. You're just standing in fear. You're saying, if I put myself out there, I am worried that I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm going to not make it. I'm going to put, my life savings into something and I could lose it all. And that feels scary. I'm saying I'm choosing fear in a very biological way. That is actually what has kept us going for so long. It takes those few people who are willing to say, I will not accept my comfortability anymore. I choose uncomfortability, even if it gets me killed. Even if it means like getting out of my bubble in a very evolution sense from this like society of like hunters and gatherers to a society where it was more of a farms and like homestead type experiences where we were planted in one place and had to deal with all 4 seasons of that place and have to deal with, okay, well, if something doesn't grow, if we don't have enough rain, if, the migration patterns, they stop migrating through this area, like we no longer have meat, we no longer, like, you have to be willing to step into the unknown in order to manifest what you want, in order to change your life. Going out to get coffee always feels like a luxury experience. I love all the flavors, and I'm not a big like fancy drink person. I often get like really kind of simple things. I remember being like so tired from just babies being awake. It must have been a rough night with like one of them. One of them was, either up or whatever. I needed to stop by Walmart. There was a Walmart by us. And I was like, okay, I got to get diapers, because we were out of diapers, and basically I couldn't afford to get diapers until we had no more. I couldn't go to Costco and like stock up. I was like, okay, I got to stop and get at least, like a small pack or whatever. I think my mom or my sisters was kind of who watched my kids when they were little, when I would work. And so I was like, okay, one of them, we have enough to like get through the evening, but they're going to need it tomorrow. So I stopped and I was like, I am so tired. I really want to stop at Starbucks and just get like a regular coffee. I was like a small one, they had the bar type thing where you could put in your own like milk and stuff like that. And I'll just do that. And I remember like looking at my bank account, and I am not kidding you. It was 6 cents. And I was like, okay, cool. And then scrounging in my car for change so I could buy this coffee, because I was working until I worked at the Caesar's Form Shops, the MAC Cosmetics in there. And I was working until, I think it was probably a Saturday night. It closed at 12 or 1 a.m. I can't remember. And be like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this shift. And I remember that moment being like, I cannot do this. I cannot be walking into work buying diapers that if I don't buy these, like my baby needs them, and I don't get paid for another like 2 or 3 days, and having 6 cents in my bank account. If something happened, I have nothing. And like didn't have good enough credit to like, didn't have a credit card. I was like, I cannot live like this anymore. Like this is not, and it was just such an awareness of like, this is also not what I want for my family. And information started to come to me and be brought to my awareness that I never really asked for, but I needed for that time. And I really became aware. I was like, oh, interesting. Like my mom was a single mom. Her mom, it's debatable whether she got pregnant first or married first. The dates are very, very close together. And then was divorced shortly after, which at that time period was like unheard of. And my great grandmother was also a single mom. My grandma was born out of wedlock, traveling salesman type of thing. And I was just kind of looking at some of these things that I was like, it has to stop. Like, it wasn't just that, it was other things as well. But I was like, these patterns have to stop. And so before generational trauma or any of that was really a word or a thing in my awareness, because again, this is 10, 11, 12 years ago, nobody was talking about that. Instagram had just started. You have to get to this point. If you want to change your experience, if you want to jump timelines like I did within 6 months, literally having no money to buy a small black coffee at Starbucks and not getting paid for several days, taking out payday loans. I did a couple of those because again, like had things that I had to pay for or had to help my family pay for as well, that this needed to happen to within, I'm not kidding you, it may have been 9 months. I'm trying to think of exact dates, but it wasn't even a year and I was already hiring my first employee. If you're wanting to have those kinds of experiences within a short amount of time that your life can drastically change, look at what you're avoiding. Look at the parts that are giving you the most pain and the most suffering. That's where you need to start. That's where you need to start choosing differently. So even now within my business, I notice, okay, what do I avoid? And I notice for a while, like avoiding creating content or being really meticulous in my marketing and being clear of who I was speaking to, writing everything out. having a very clear plan. It was just kind of like throwing things up there and like hoping they stick. When I started implementing like the strategies that I talk about in Master Manifestor of like being really clear energetically and then following it up with some action, and we kind of get deep into that in that course. But literally, I opened cart, people bought. That has never happened. Literally never. I've launched all sorts of things. Day one, it was like I had finally put into place, and finally kind of even within this business, as I'm starting to like, stretch myself energetically, I've done it for other things. I've done it within my lash business. I've done it within my retreat business. And so it was like, this was the first kind of big launch within my healing business. And again, I was like, okay, do what you know, do what you're teaching, get really clear, be prepared for it to come in. I already know what I'm receiving. I already know, like, I'm ready for it. There is no other option for me right now. There is no plan B. This is it. And when you get to that point, people feel it. Your energy, your energetic signature is being broadcast in such a way, and we get super nerdy and like master manifestor, because you literally do become an antenna. I'm not kidding. When that happens, it's like a radio. Okay. So you have the radio and the antenna, and it's broadcasting and it's saying, hey, I'm trying to pick up on this frequency. There's all these frequencies around you that you can't see. But if you have tuned to the wrong station, you are never going to pick up that frequency. So this is what we work on in Master Manifestor is, okay, you're wanting something in your mind. You think you want something. Why can't you tune it to that station? We go into why that is. But if you're wanting to make huge leaps within your life, start looking at what you're being really comfortable in. Like, I see this all the time when I work one-on-one with people, and they're doing all of the things in their business and none of the things are actually productive. I'm like, cool, you have a podcast. Is it monetized? No. Okay, cool. So are you doing any, marketing? Are you doing any type of Facebook ads? Are you doing any type of lead generation then towards the podcast so we can monetize it? No. Okay. Are you doing social media and kind of talking about your podcast? Are you doing any kind of giveaway or any type of incentive? No. Okay. So what are you doing? I know that you're posting every day on Instagram, but clearly it's not working, or TikTok or whatever it is. And, they're posting pictures of their life, and, they're on stories, and like, we're having conversations in the DMs. I'm like, are any of them about your podcast that you're trying to make this thing? No. Like, they're commenting on, my cute pets and like where I'm traveling. And I'm like, okay, so none of these people enjoy watching you, but they're not invested. Like, they don't think that you're the solution to their problem. So they're not going to seek out your podcast because you've not made them aware that you can solve that problem for them. And so you're just doing busy work. And, this is like, I use this analogy in the masterclass, and it kind of just made me have a really good chuckle. But a lot of times when you're trying to manifest something and you're like, I'm doing all the things, I'm doing the vision board, I'm saying the affirmations, I'm doing meditation, I'm, doing whatever. And you, again, are not the frequency, and you're not living the frequency. You are not being the frequency of what you want. Here's what happens. Have you seen the TikToks where it's like husband getting ready for house guests? Okay. And the husband, the wife or the partner or whoever says, hey, we're going to have people over. They're going to be here, Saturday night, they're coming over for dinner. Could you help me get ready, the house ready for them? And an hour later, they're like, I can't find my husband or my partner, anywhere. And lo and behold, I find him upstairs repainting the linen closet. And you're like, how the fuck is that helpful? Yes, you're doing something. It makes you feel better because you're like, I'm doing something, I'm helping, I'm taking an action. But if the actions are not in line with what you are wanting, you are again doing things on the frequency or on the timeline that you are currently living at. If you're wanting to experience something different, you have to do something different, and that's going to be uncomfortable. So don't be afraid and don't be worried if you're experiencing, imposter syndrome, or you're, kind of sabotaging yourself, or you're doing some of these things. Instead, like, look at it and be like, wow, okay, cool. This is showing up for me because that means I get the opportunity to choose something different. It means that this is my old timeline and it's showing me that it's here. And I get to choose a different timeline. And when I do that, my life starts to change and my reality starts to organize around this timeline. But I have to do that over and over. I have to be committed. I have to be the frequency. I cannot veer from this path. There cannot not be any other plan B. I can't settle for anything else. And even though things might come up and you're like, oh, this kind of feels like this isn't it, or I didn't get exactly what I wanted, sometimes it comes in a better package. I recently had that experience where I didn't get what I thought I wanted. But really, when I thought about it, I'm like, you didn't actually want that. You were doing the painting the linen closet. It was a distraction from what you were really wanting. And so once I really was like, oh, okay, and I like went all in on what I really wanted, shit started to move fast. And that's kind of the difference, being able to tap into that over and over, even if you get sidetracked. Even if you're like, okay, I made one decision that because I wanted to be more comfortable, because that was my old timeline, because that's what I knew. But now I can choose differently. Now I can actually step into this timeline and trust that it's working out for me, even if I can't see it quite yet. You have to let go of the fruits, like let go of controlling the outcome, let go of it being a certain way. When I jumped and started my own business, I had one client and two babies to feed. Not a very technically smart move, right? If you would have told anybody else, if you would have told somebody, they're like, hey, what do you think? Do you think this is a smart business move? They would have been like, fuck no. Stay at your business, develop this, this other one, and then leave, or, whatever. I didn't have any money in savings. I got a secured credit card. Okay, so you have to like put money down. I think that money came from a payday loan. Put that payday loan down on a credit card, so I could have this credit card, and then put a chair so I could do lashes on the credit card, and paid an exorbitant amount of interest on this loan and different things like that. Like, you can't choose plan A and plan B. Eventually the splits, trying to straddle both sides, eventually you won't reach both. You'll just be somewhere in the funky middle. So if you're wanting to jump timelines in your life, if you're wanting to make significant changes, you have to be committed to your plan A. You have to live your life. And so many people say this, like, live like you're, already experiencing it. And that's kind of easier said than done. And I give you a lot of ways to make it easier or more clear of how to do it in Master Manifestor. But I mean, you don't need, just because you want a Lamborghini doesn't mean you need to go put yourself into debt and have a Lamborghini to be living that life. You can experience a sense of gratitude for the car that you have, for the house that you have, the relationship you have. What you have control of is your mind. What you have control of is your energy. Start there. Stop focusing on outside of you. Start focusing on inside of you. That will take you a lot further and actually start to attune your frequency better than buying anything, better than getting approval from anyone else, better than getting another certification, is being so clear in who you are, what you want, and where you're going, and how you show up every single day. When you do that over and over and you show up as the person that embodies what you want, you emotionally, energetically already have it. And then you're just waiting for the physical world to like bring it to you. And it happens quicker when you're committed to that plan A, that there is no plan B. I cannot wait. I was like, oh, I kind of have to share like some snippets from Master Manifestor because it's so good. And I want everybody to have what they want. If you have something on your heart, if you have something that is this desire, And it's like how it is for me. Every single time I've started a business, it has been something that I'm like, it like wells up inside of me. And it feels like that. And you feel like you're kind of choking down your dreams or choking down what you want. You're not, don't stop doing that. You are meant for more. Stop doing that to yourself. Get yourself the support, get yourself the help, get yourself some clarity. Maybe you need to get in Master Manifestor so you can get more clear, so you can have the tools to be able to live the life that you want, to be able to create that reality for yourself every single time. So I hope this little snippet of Master Manifesting and kind of some of what I'm teaching in there was really, really helpful to you to be getting clear on what you want and how to get what you want. If you love this episode, please, again, just make sure to share it with a friend. Everybody deserves to have what they want. Everybody deserves to live the life that they know that they were meant to live. And one of the ways that we do that is share information like this, like how do we get there? So share it with them. If you share it on Instagram stories that you love this episode, please make sure you tag me at Shalane Carter. I love to see you guys listening. And it's really the only way I know who listens to it, which is really fun. And again, like I have a little something coming for you. So kind of stay tuned, turn the subscribe button on so you get notified whenever there's a new episode that drops. And I will see you next time. Cheers. This podcast is intended for information and entertainment only. This content is based in personal experience and opinion. This and any other content produced by CLW Studios is not to be meant to be taken as health, relationship, or financial advice. Results are not guaranteed. If you are interested in mentorship or coaching with me, check out the website linked in the show notes to get more information. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of Shalane or CLW Studios. Learn more about Shalane, her guests, and CLW Studios by following the links in the show notes.